and Fox News. Lawrence County depends on WDXE News, on the air since 1951. This is the legend. 1053 953 WDXE.
And kids, it's time for Stan Pierchoski and Bulletproof Estate Planning. Stan, good to see you again, my friend.
Good morning. We missed you last week, Jeff.
Well, I missed being here. We had a little vacation and enjoyed that.
Of course, that's a fib. You didn't miss us, and I don't blame you. And I don't know why. I would, if you were telling the truth, I'd be.
Well, it was nice to be off, but I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it is nice to get away.
Yeah, nice to be off. But you guys carried on.
We did.
Heard that
LB was here.
LB was here. Lonnie Box came in and pushed the buttons and got you up and going.
Yeah, he did. He did good.
Yeah, I did see some of that, by the way, just to make sure you were on.
Oh, did you? Okay. Yeah, he. Before we went to talk radio, I would come in on WDXE on Friday mornings for just about 10-minute session, then we'll go over to where Mark is on WLX. So
yeah,
but yeah, LB's I like LB.
Well, he's a likable fella. He really
He's
is.
pretty grounded, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Of course, a lot, and he is. But you know, a lot of things have happened since you and I were together. I mean, there's all kind of current event stuff happening.
Yeah.
The White House has been totally remodeled, evidently.
No, not totally. Just a portion of it.
You'd think though from some of the conversations that and some of the talking heads that the whole thing's been torn down. You know.
That's why I say some of it's being remodeled, not the whole thing.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Well, there was a time when one of the presidents, those wings, the east and west wings, were not part of the original White House.
No.
Those were built over time.
That's true.
And the east wing is one of the oldest, and I can't remember who did the west wing. Was it Roosevelt or?
Yeah,
Truman? It was Truman. It was Truman.
Truman did a remodel on the whole thing.
Yeah,
he gutted it and redid it. So
when did someone put in those tunnels and stuff? Those were not. They're not there for any particular purpose. Not like they are, running power or pipes from.
And what
I
was
think
it?
they do run power pipes from. But the tunnels are there for other reasons. But
when was it that was it during the War of 1812? Or I maybe have this wrong. That the White House burned.
Yeah, it had burned a couple times.
Couple times, yeah. So anyway, very interesting.
And what does it matter? And it's not being done with taxpayer money.
Well, yeah, that's true too. Which I find fascinating.
Which by donors. Anyway, it doesn't. And we're having such a success on the world stage. We have to. I mean this sincerely. We have to have an appearance of the world leader. That means something. Even though it's that be. When people come to visit, we have to look like we're a world leader.
Yeah.
So making the place nicer and bigger, and look like we have money.
Well, it's a show. It's a show of strength and power.
That's exactly right.
For the country.
The whole Washington D.C. was designed to be just that. It is like this. They got the White House and the Capitol in the middle, and the wheels and the roads kind of lead in like the spokes of a wheel and stuff like that. It's it's kind of like a very strong home game advantage.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be very intimidating. And I think that when you do stuff like that, it's like any house. After a while, it gets out of style, even if it's something like that. But anyway, it doesn't bother me a bit. I've seen it bother some people, but not me.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me either.
Now, if it were squandering money, that'd be a different story. But it's not.
It's not our money anyway. Their donors are doing it, so whatever.
But people say, well, it's not that person's house to do anything with. That's not entirely true. He has the executive authority of the person in the chief executive position has authority to make those modifications.
Well, you could make this argument too that it's the people's house, but the people elected him to do it. So yeah, it's people's house, but
you can't micromanage stuff. You can't say, well, if you want to do something different in the White House, you got to get public approval or something. That's micromanaging. Nothing would ever get done. And that's why when they instill powers, constitutional powers in different branches of the government, that's exactly what they're trying to accomplish. They keep a rein on it. There's a check and balance system, but it's not micromanaged. It's not every little thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, we could talk about that a lot. But
yeah, we could.
It's interesting. There's an old saying that says, "May you be blessed to live in interesting times."
Yeah, we do.
We are, and we
do.
maybe leading up to this latest time, I wish it hadn't been too interesting.
Yeah.
But it's, anyway.
Well, what we should do though is let everybody know that, of course, this is a bulletproof estate planning with Stan Pierchoski, Pierchoski Estate Law, and we want that phone number given out, 766-9393, if you'd like to talk to Stan this morning and have questions regarding estates, estate planning, and that kind of thing.
I guess we do have to talk about why we're here, right?
Yeah, that's a good thing.
At least some of it.
At least to some degree.
Well, let me just start off with the seminar coming up. I talk about every Friday, and every Friday it gets a little closer. So
Yeah.
It's November the 22nd. It's kind of just before the holidays, but it might be a good distraction for folks to do something. That's a Saturday. And of course, we do our Saturday ones at 10 o'clock, and it seems like we're doing lots of Saturday ones here. It just seems to be a popular time, or an advantageous time for people to come.
Right.
And so it's Saturday 10 o'clock, but it's up in Franklin. It's at the Williamson County Public Library. And the physical address of that is 1314 Columbia Avenue in Franklin, Tennessee. GPS will take you right there. If you don't have to wait until it comes around to Lawrence County again, and I'm not sure when that's going to be. I think it's on my calendar if you go to my website. We usually have them scheduled about 6 months in advance at least, maybe even further. This one's been delayed a while. We like to go up north for some of our northern listeners and people that call us. We like to go up there once to twice a year. And we had a venue we used up there that's no longer available.
Yes.
So it took us a while to kind of find something that we wanted. And we found this one. So this is the first one we've done up in Franklin, but it's not a long trip from here to there.
No, it's not at all.
Saturday, it probably wouldn't take 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But I don't know when the next one in Lawrence County is coming. So if you want to come to that, it's like I said, it's a pretty nice drive. It's not all the way into Nashville. It's not like you got to get in downtown Nashville and try to park. But it's coming up on the 22nd. We call it Will's Trust in the Nursing Home, and that's what we talk about. So if you got questions on what we talk about every Friday, or any questions on the concept of estate planning or aspects to it, then come on up, bring your question with you.
Absolutely.
And ask it, and I'll be more than happy to donate that. And I give the time freely, so take advantage of it. I don't mind answering questions for folks. Usually when we rent a venue, I may be limited on how long I can stay there, but we usually get about 3 to 4 hours at a time, which we don't use that much time, but I will stay. I've often stayed here at the radio station an hour and a half, pushing 2 hours to answer questions afterwards. So, So,
Very helpful.
We'll bring that up at the end of the hour again too, but it's not too early to sign up because we've already got some.
Yeah, well, good deal.
We got a lot, as a matter from what I hear. So,
had any interesting cases lately that kind of spark your interest?
Kind of. Cases and just concepts that people talk to me about.
Sure.
And one of them is how people. Well, let me back up a little. Most people, especially around this neck of the woods, here in southern Middle Tennessee.
Right.
It is extremely common that the biggest asset in the estate is the house. Or the home. It could be the family farm, but the house and acreage, because there's no such thing as a deed to the house. When I say the home, I'm talking about, where you live and the patch of green that goes with it.
Right.
So, and it's not uncommon that is the lion's share of the estate.
Sure.
So it needs to be protected, and folks have come up with where there's some misinformation sometimes about how to protect it. The very best way to protect it is to put it in our asset protection trust, because that is. As I say, bulletproof. But here's some of the things I've seen people do, and they're trying to protect it, but somewhere they're getting bad information, typically from the internet, I would suppose. But one of the ways some people like to just give it away to the children, and you can do that. I get asked all the time, can I give my house away? That's not really the right question. Of course you can give it away. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that. The right question is, what's the result of me giving my house away to a child? So you can always do it. There's never anything that says you can't do it.
Right.
But just giving it away will work, but you're going to be stuck with this same 5-year period that everybody's worried about. Because whenever I talk about this 5-year period, it always has to do with when you gift something away. Now, gift is not what they use in the statute. I use the word gift, and I do it for a specific reason. When I say the word gift, it implies you're not getting anything for it. And that's what it's about.
Right.
The statute actually says if you ever divest yourself of anything for less than fair market value. Okay, that's a mouthful of words, but it's actually called a divestment. Okay,
right.
And so because you're giving it up, you're giving it away. So if you give it away, you're still stuck with that 5-year period the moment you give it away. Now, if that 5-year period goes by, well, the house is protected, but then again, the house really isn't yours anymore. Okay?
Yes.
But you know, you can accomplish it that way. It's kind of what we call divest and wait and see.
Yeah.
Nothing happens. But here's some of the drawbacks of that. Once you give it away, you are giving it away. It's not yours anymore. And what can happen is if you give it away, most people do that kind of thing when maybe some sort of level of care starts to become foreseeable.
Right.
And if they give it away and 3 years later they end up where they were worried about ending up in some sort of long-term care, well, that gifting away is going to cause us some major problems. And now you may not be able to get it back. Now you may think to yourself, well, if I give it to my son, if I get into a pinch, surely he'll just deed it back to me. And he might. But I don't know, maybe he's married and his wife doesn't want to deed it back. Or maybe he's borrowed a couple $100,000 to build on it himself and now he's heavily invested in the property and not too crazy about giving it back to you. I mean, there could be all kind of things. My point is it's out of your control now.
Yes.
And once you give it, you know, I mean, and you can get it back. If they do give it back, that'll make that penalty go away, but now you have the asset. So, as a natural progression of that thought process, what some folks will do is they will give it away, but they say, still want to live here. You know, I don't want to give it away and then have to move.
Right, exactly.
And then they'll be talking to somebody and they'll say, well, you know, if you give it to your kid, you know, what's to keep him from turning around and giving you the boot?
Yeah.
Right? And the answer is nothing, because when you give it to them, they're the owner. And if they decide they don't want you there anymore, they can remove you.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, would they, and they're your kids? I mean, probably not. But, you know, like I said, it's the thing you don't see coming, like sometimes the people they marry. And when you think, what I'm getting at is if you have a child, and he's pretty, you know, a good kid, and you say, I trust him, he's not going to give me the boot.
Yeah.
You got to think of it this way. Suppose he marries somebody, or is already married somebody, and they kind of think that they should remove you from that place. So you want to stay, and your in-law kind of wants you to go.
Right.
Think of the position the son is in. He wants to do what mom and dad want, but he's got a marriage to save and keep going. So his spouse wants him to do something. I mean, it's a rock and a hard spot, really.
Right.
You know, who are you going to please? Who are you going to not please? There's not much of an in-between position.
Yeah.
It's either let them stay there or not. And so
Right.
we run into a lot of that. Now, it doesn't happen a lot, but we do see it. So they will reserve a life estate. Now it starts to get a little sticky, because when you reserve a life estate, people say, well, I have the right to live there. But what you don't understand is you have retained value of that house. You have retained an asset. So let's talk about what a life estate is. I think we've probably talked about it several times before. But
Yes.
a life, and you probably run into it all the time.
I do.
And a life estate is, what you do is you are giving away a portion of the property to your son. I'm just going to say your son.
Yes.
And that's called the remainder interest, or sometimes it's referred to as the future interest. And that person's known as the remainderment. And they own the future interest. But you reserve the present possessory interest
Yes.
to live there, the present. And so it's kind of like having a long-time renter. I mean, you know, when you rent a piece of property, you give up the use and enjoyment of it. I mean, you can't go infringing on somebody that's renting a piece of property. You can't like show up and say, I want to walk around the house, make sure you're not trashing it or something. You know, you just can't do that kind of stuff. They get the quiet enjoyment of the home when they're renting it.
Right.
And so when they're you know, if somebody has a life estate, it's kind of like that. And this life estate they put value on that. When I say they, I'm talking about the government. You know,
Yes.
and how do you determine what the value of a life estate is? Well, believe it or not, you know, I've talked to people and say, I have this life estate, my son owns the property, it's all his, and you know, I'm just living there. But it's an actual value. And we just had to do this in one that was given away, you know, back in 2015.
Right.
And so what you need to do,
Right.
there's a table in the Social Security Code, Title 42. It's called the Life Estate Table, surprisingly. And this table has 3 columns in it, 3 columns only. First one is age, and so you go down the column to the age, and let's say you're 65 when you decide to deed the property away.
Right.
You go to 65, then you go across to the 2 columns. The next 2 columns are labeled, one is called the remainder interest, and the other one's called the life estate interest. And they are fractions, or they're decimals, but they are fractions. And surprisingly to me, those decimals go to 5 digits, which is what, a thousandth of a penny?
Yeah.
Anyway, typical government.
Yes.
Anyway, those two numbers add up to 1. Okay, so what you do is, let's just say you gave away a property, and for easy numbers to work with on the radio, let's say it's worth $100,000.
Yeah.
I know that's not what houses are worth, but it's an easy in your head number. And so you give away. So if you want to figure out what you retained, you go to this table, you go down to your age, you multiply the $100,000 times the number in the life estate. That's what you're keeping. And if you want to know how much of it you gave away, it's that fraction times $100,000 for the remainder.
Right.
And if you're 65 years old, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to come right in around 40% is what you're retaining.
Right.
Quite a bit. And that's what. And now, when we talk about gifting something away, we didn't give them a $100,000 house. We only gave them that fraction, which is about 60% or 60,000.
Right.
And so, and now as you look at the table, as you get older, the life estate value dwindles to get smaller and smaller. And the theory is that the life estate expires worthless at death.
Yes.
Now that death can happen at any time, and it goes to zero. But if you look at the table, the older you get, the less value it becomes. Okay?
Yes.
Now that's an asset you could even sell if you could find
Yeah.
if you could find a buyer. I think it's very unmarketable to sell a life estate, and in fact,
It
I mean,
is very difficult.
You can sell it, but the only person really going to buy it is going to be the remainder of it,
Yeah.
the guy that has the future interest anyway. But it's hard to sell a life estate because what's it worth? I mean, you can go to that table, but it's like, gee, I don't know how long you're going to live. I mean,
Yeah.
you're overweight, you eat terribly. I don't know. Maybe you're going to pass away soon, and it might be. I don't know how much to pay for it. Or
Very,
maybe you're gonna
very
be-
difficult
Or maybe
to
you're going to
know.
live for 20 more years,
Yeah.
and now what do I pay for it? So it's not very marketable. Like I said, the only person to be interested in buying it would be the person that owns the future interest,
Sure.
the remainder of it. But it has a value to it. And the value of that estate, I mean, we can deal with that, but it's something, it's an asset that you have.
Yeah.
And so, the life estate is not. If you want to protect property from like your creditors, and when I say your creditors, of course, the one everybody's worried about is long-term care.
Yeah.
It actually protects it from all creditors, but I don't spend much talking about that because 99% of folks are concerned about the creditor of long-term care.
Right.
And so, it's not always the best option. It's not as clean. There's more to it than that. But the best option, in my opinion, is you can just put the whole thing into this asset protection trust. Now you're divesting yourself of it, and you're giving it to the trust. Now what we do in that, we under the rules and the law, we reserve a right of occupancy to live there. And that's a way to preserve the right of occupancy, because the trust owns the property now. We want to live there, and it does not assign value to it.
Okay.
So it's a cleaner way to do it. And once you put it in that trust, it's protected from long-term care the very moment you put it in there. Because once you put it in there, you've turned it into a non-countable asset, which is not available for you to sell it for the cost of care, like that.
Yeah.
But it does trigger the 5-year period, like we have often talked about. And it triggers that 5-year period because when we give it to the trust is not paying us $100,000 for it.
Right.
If it did, we would not have gotten anywhere. We'd still be there with a $100,000 asset. It just changed posture from the real estate to cash.
Yes.
So when we put that into the trust, that is a divestment. We've given it to trust, and trust has not paid us for it. And so that triggers the 5-year rule, and that's what causes the two sets of laws, TennCare and trust law, to influence each other.
Very good. Very good. I think it's interesting to think about the fact that when you put your property in a trust, you somehow bypass the penalty for being compensated for it.
Well, I mean, it's just structured that way. I mean, you can do it. We just structured it that way for that reason. We don't want the value of living. Because nobody's getting cheated out of it because it's your trust that owns it. In other words, if you give it to your kid, you can't do the right of occupancy. There's no value. That has to be a life estate.
Yes.
I mean,
but if you put it in a trust, you can still live in your home.
You can still live in your home. It's seamless to you if you put it in this trust.
Yeah.
Whatever you're doing now in your home, you continue doing.
Yeah.
It just is now owned by the trust, and that's what gives us the creditor protection. Now, the other big thing is when I started this story, I said if you just give it to your child, you may not be able to get it back. You've given up all control of it, right? When you put it in trust, you have unlimited control of the assets in the trust.
Yeah.
So now, if something would happen, let's say you put it in the trust, we got to wait 5 years, and everything goes south very quickly, like 6 months to a year. We can back out of the trust because we control the trust and we control the assets in it. We can back out of it and flip the switch and go into our crisis planning and try to save the house with some other different tools other than the trust. Because the trust is going to need this time to actually protect everything. It needs that 5 years.
Yeah.
And so if something happens and we're already there, or we're there too soon, it's probably, the numbers probably won't justify staying with the trust for the remaining 4 years or something.
Right.
If you can get to 3 years or more, usually the economic analysis says stay with the trust. But
Okay.
anything less than that is usually not. It's just that we run the numbers when that happens and see where we stand.
Sure.
And sometimes it's better just to do something different.
Interesting stuff.
But we're not without options. I mean, people put stuff in the trust, they gotta wait that 5 years, and something happens after 1 or 1.5, it's like, oh shoot, we're just screwed. But we're not without options. It's just the trust is not the best option anymore.
Right.
But if there's other things we can do, we've got all those crisis planning tools, we can still save that house.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little more effort, but if you put it in the trust and you make the 5 years, we never have to think about the house again. It's not even in the equation.
Yeah.
You don't even have to put it in the application. I mean, it's just out of the picture, which is the best result, because you don't even have to deal with it.
Yeah.
But if you have to unwind the trust and deal with it with crisis planning tools, we can still save it. It's just part of what we have to do now.
Very good.
So that's why I think the best of all worlds is the asset protection trust, because not only does it protect property from the creditors of long-term care, it also has all the same attributes that the revocable living trust has, where it passes property probate-free after death, and you can put all kinds of terms and conditions on it if you choose to do so. It's just you get the best of everything. So
that is what we want too,
yeah,
is the best of everything.
And we do a lot of them. The people that come to seminars is a very popular trust plan. Because most of the folks who come to my seminar are people that are either in their retirement years or coming up on them.
Right.
And that's when you start thinking about stuff like possible long-term care. What happens if, myself or my spouse ends up there? Here I am coming up on retirement or in retirement. I've worked all my life. I've created my nest egg. I want to hang on to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I care about my spouse and certainly want to get them the right care they need, but we sure also don't hate to go broke in the process.
Yeah.
And so, and you don't have to. There's tons of options that we can use. We exercise them all the time. And anyway, something that just popped into my head when you said, "Is anything going on?" And we had a case that we got back in approval earlier this week on Monday for TennCare.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say something about that. I'm shifting gears. Sorry.
That's okay.
If you had a question,
I'll come back to it.
I'm always stripping the gears. I strip the system so fast, but I wanted to mention this before it was one of those fleeting thoughts, and that was we had another TennCare approval this week, and I think it was like the 4th or 5th one we've had in the last 2 months.
Okay.
Now, all these 4 or 5 approvals we got came in right about the time they're supposed to come in, about 3 months. Came in with the patient liability, the copay that the person has to pay, pretty much right on the money.
Yep.
And 1 or 2 of them had a penalty period built into them. They came back with the penalty period calculated right. Now, that is unusual for TennCare.
Oh, wow.
And 6 months ago to a year ago, when we talking about, I think you heard me complaining about, not complaining, but kind of complaining about several cases that were getting treated wrong. They were denying them for wrong reasons. We had to appeal.
Right.
It seems that the pendulum has shifted. I don't want to go out on a limb too far, because maybe it's just luck. I don't know. But it seems like they're going through smoother. They are getting treated differently, and that they're going the way they're supposed to go. So I think there's some kind of shift with the TennCare system internally.
Good.
Because we were having trouble almost with every case. I mean, we got everybody eligible. I kind of brag about that sometimes.
Right.
But we had to mess with it, maybe appeal something, or talk to them and try and talk them into something, or file additional documents to prove something. These last 4 or 5, and the last 4 or 5 in a row, with the absence of one that's a problem, have gone through just surprisingly smooth, kind of like the way the system's supposed to be.
Good.
Yeah, it is good. Now, I don't know how long it'll last, but I'll take it for as long as it does, because eventually it'll swing back the other way. I think it has a lot to do with who's in charge, who runs the show, that kind of stuff. So, anyway, that's kind of a good thing, if it's what I'm thinking it is, but who knows? We'll see.
I had a question about if we put all our assets in the trust, and we're protected, and then I'm thinking about long term. The day comes when I'm no longer on this earth. Okay, my wife and I have gone on to be with the Lord.
Gotcha.
And these trusts exist. What are the long term effects for those trusts as far as where they go, what happens then?
Well, if it's your, like you and Teresa saying do it
Sure.
first, at the second death, you know, we always kill the husband off first in my
Yes.
office, so.
Yes.
But anyway, at the second death, your trust now is terminating. Unless there's a reason for it to stay open, but for the most part, they will terminate. And how a trust terminates is you have somebody that you had named as the successor trustee, which is probably,
Okay.
probably one of your adult children at
Yes.
the time. And their job is to take the property that's in that trust, because you said earlier you put property in the trust.
Okay.
They're supposed to take the trust and distribute it in accordance to where the trust says it goes. Because
Okay.
the trust will say on there, I forget, what do you have, 3 children?
Yes.
Let's just say you have 3 children, and you just say, whatever's in this trust, they each get a third. Let's
Yeah.
just keep it easy. It can be whatever you want, but let's just keep it simple.
Sure.
And so that person's job is to gather all that property and distribute it to them a third, a third, a third.
Yeah.
Including themselves.
Yeah.
Now, when they distribute to themselves, it's just a matter of capacity, meaning he's the successor trustee, but he's distributing to himself, the individual, the deed or the money or whatever.
Right.
And so, I mean, shortly after the second death, the property gets distributed, then your trust terminates, because a trust without property terminates under a frustration of purpose, and it comes to an end.
This may be beyond what we want to talk about here, but let's say what would be the impact, tax-wise or otherwise, for the family down the road when those trusts hit their assets?
A distribution of the assets, right?
Yes.
But it kind of depends on what it is, but they can only be in so many different formats. Now, let's talk about non-cash. I mean, if you have $50,000 in the bank, I mean, that's just pretty much cash, right?
Yeah.
So if it's real estate,
Yeah.
which is near and dear to your heart, if it's real estate, if the trust is done correctly, which mine are, and
They are.
there's no tax effect, because the tax that would affect real estate is what you hear called the capital gain tax.
Right.
And capital gain tax is pretty misunderstood, in my opinion.
Okay.
People hear the term gets thrown around a lot, but I'm not sure it's quite understood. But so let's talk about what that is before we can talk about how that prevents the heirs from dealing with it.
Okay.
The capital gain tax is, when you own anything, I mean, it could be a house, it could be stock, it could be gold and silver coins. I mean, it could be any asset. It just doesn't apply to cash.
Yeah.
And so if you own something, let's just use a house, because everybody can relate to that.
Yeah.
So let's say you buy your house. You and your wife save up, you buy a house, and it costs, again, simple, it costs $100,000.
Right.
So now you own it. And you live there for 20 years, and 30 years, and you do stuff to it, and you just whatever, things you do with the house.
Sure.
And now, but even if you didn't do much to it, naturally, the price of the house is going to go up. Simply because real estate is always at least 3 steps up and 2
Yeah.
steps back. I mean, you got that goes up, you have the retracements, and you got good years and bad years, but the
Yeah.
net effect is always more.
Yeah.
Unless it gets trashed for some reason.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying. But 99% of the time, the house, no. So let's say 20 years from now, you decide to sell the house.
Yeah.
And the going rate is $200,000.
Yeah.
You got a buyer, and you say, I want $200,000 for this house. You got a buyer that says, I accept your offer. So you cut a deal. You get to a closing, you get a check for $200,000.
Yep.
Okay. Now, that check represents a $100,000 capital gain.
Right.
I didn't say the word tax yet. I said capital gain. I'm just
Right.
talking about the gain. And the gain is, so when you bought the house and paid $100,000 for it, that's what's called your tax base. I don't want to get too confusing, but
Right.
we need to know that to understand capital gain. So that's the tax base, what you paid for it. Now, when you sell it for anything over the base, that's the gain.
Right.
It's a capital gain. Now, once you get that check for $200,000, you have a $100,000 capital gain. You do not have a capital gain tax yet. If you still have that money, 180 days later, which is 6 months, now you owe a tax on that gain. And it's
Yeah.
pretty healthy. It's like 28.8%. It can be as high as 40, but whenever I've seen it go through, it's right around the 28%. So,
Yeah.
but for $100,000, it's $28,000. That's
a lot of money.
It's a big deal. So that's how it would be if the owners sold it, okay? Because they have this basis, right? Now, when you say in your trust, let's just say instead of leaving a third of the house to your 3 kids, you leave it all to your oldest son. Just give you say
Yeah.
you get the house. Just so we're not talking about fractional ownership.
Sure.
You leave it to one person. At the second death, the trusts are designed, and the IRS rules allow for this, the receiver of that house will receive a step up in basis, it's called.
Yep.
And what that means is, we use the same house and the same numbers. At the second death of you and Teresa, that child's basis, tax basis, will be stepped up to the fair market value the day of the second death.
Right.
So in this case, it's $200,000.
Right.
So, and it's Daniel, right? Oldest son?
Yes.
Daniel's tax basis is now $200,000.
Right.
And that's what it's worth. So technically, if he turned around the very day after he got it and sold it, there'd be no capital gain.
Right.
And no capital gain tax. But if Daniel keeps it for 20 years and now it goes to $300,000,
Yeah.
he will have his own capital gain, but it starts from the stepped up number because his base is now $200,000.
Yeah.
So again, you can have the gain, but you don't always pay the tax. And so let's back up a little bit and say that you guys, the owners, sold it for $200,000. If you found another place $200,000 or more in value and bought it, you can kick the can down the road. It's what they call a 1031 exchange.
Right.
And you can escape the capital gain tax if you do that. Technically, you're kicking the can down the road. It's probably going to get paid sometime, but not till the future.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you put it in the trust, you get this step up in basis, and that's a big deal for your heirs. That's a real big deal for your heirs.
Yeah.
Because now, contrast that with what I was talking about a little earlier when I said some people want to try and save the home by giving it to the kid now,
Yes.
during life, which is called inter vivos. Give it to them while you're still alive.
Right.
Capital gains plays a role in that. I didn't bring it up then because that wasn't the point I was trying to make, but now they dovetail together because if you give it, okay, let's say you decide, I'm going to just deed the property to Daniel because I don't want it to get taken away from Teresa and I.
Right.
So, Daniel, here's a deed, $10 token, $10 in love and affection. The consideration is, that, and here it is. Well, when you give that to him, his basis is your basis. And the reason is, so his basis is $100,000.
Right.
And the reason that is because there is no bargain for sale or exchange to calculate a new basis.
Yeah.
So it's a default. He gets your basis. So if it's worth $200,000 when you give it to him, you have handed him a potential $100,000 capital gain liability, right?
Yeah.
Because if he turns around and sells it right after you give it to him, he's got a $100,000 gain because
Okay.
it's worth $200 now.
Okay.
So that's kind of a disadvantage to doing it during life. I mean, so when people say, can I give my house away during life? The answer is yes, but let's talk about the baggage that goes with it. There are
Right.
some things you need to know. You need to know the cause and effect of that. You
That's
can
true.
certainly give it away, but that comes with it. Now, another beautiful thing about a trust is I have seen that happen with family farms. They're very valuable.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, if somebody buys a farm in the 40s, stays in the family for decades, and now it's worth $2 million or $3. I mean, this is that's
Yeah.
a huge amount. And I have seen them give it away during life. Now we're talking about buying a farm for $30,000 in 1940, and now it's worth $2.5 million.
Yeah.
Talk about a capital gain. I mean,
That's a lot.
I mean that'll break somebody to have to just pay the tax. Anyway, so I've seen that happen. But when it's things like the farm, people keep it. They're not really interested in selling it, right?
Right.
So what we do is I've told people, we discussed that they're just like beside themselves, and I can't. What have we done? We've created a giant gain. I said, wait a minute. What are your plans with the property? I'm just going to stay there and work it all my life, and I'm going to leave it to my kids. I said, well, let's do this. Let's put it in a trust. Now, when you leave it to kids, they'll get a step up in basis, and all sins will be forgiven in the past because now the thing we did
Right.
that happened between your parents and you, but they gave it away to you inter vivos, and now you have this huge gain if you sold it. That all goes away because when the child gets it at your death, you get to step up in basis to the $2.5 million or whatever it is. So it can kind of cure itself if we're not chomping at the bit to try to sell the piece of property. But capital gain, I mean, maybe someday that'll go away, but I don't know. It's something to avoid.
Yes.
And not to bring back our original topic with current events, but before this last election, one of the things the losing party was proposing was capital gain on unrealized profit.
Yes. I remember this.
Because remember when I said if you sell the property for $200,000, you have a $100,000 gain, right?
Right.
Now, you have not realized that gain yet. You have realized that gain when 180 days from the sale go by and you still have the money.
Yeah.
In other words, you didn't put it into another piece of property.
Right.
That's when it's realized, and that's when you owe the tax.
Right.
Now, taxing an unrealized, realized gain. Just imagine that. If you own 5 pieces of property, every year, it's worth more.
Yeah.
And every year, a capital gains tax on an unrealized gain would have to be paid.
Yeah.
On all 5 pieces of property. I mean, you would go broke because you owned a lot of pieces of property. But the whole concept of owning a bunch of pieces of property is to not go broke and be prosperous, right? I mean, and to be honest with you, from a legal standpoint, I don't much of a bet man, but I would bet a lot that there's no way that would fly. That is not.
Yeah.
You're taxing nothing. An unrealized gain is just, why is it called an unrealized gain? Because it doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
It's not there. And you tax something that's not there.
Yeah. And an example of what they were talking about too is like if you owned stock of some sort, and it's valued at this today, but at the end of the year it's valued higher. Well, they want to tax you on that, but you haven't sold it.
That's right.
So it's an unrealized gain is what they're talking about, and then we'll tax that, and thank the Lord they didn't and haven't, and I'm like you, I don't think it would stand.
Exactly. That's a good concept because it's exactly the same. Let's say you have 100 shares of Home Depot stock.
Yeah.
Pick it, cannabis stocks. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's stock, and it's worth $100 a share when you bought it.
Right.
Now it's worth $200 a share. If you leave it to Daniel as the stock, there's no tax to pay.
Right.
Now there's a potential capital gain if you would have sold it.
Yeah, if you
but
sold
also when you leave it to him, he gets the step up in basis.
Right.
The only time there's a taxing event during an inheritance is if you leave cash. If you let's say you got $50,000 in the bank, you say Daniel gets the money in the bank.
Yeah.
Well, that's cash. Now that has nothing to do with him getting it because you inherited it. There's no estate tax on it. There's no inheritance tax in Tennessee, but it's going to be an income event to your son. He's going to have $50,000 more income in that calendar year. So it's going to have an income event. It's going to have an income tax effect.
Right.
But it's income tax. It's not inheritance or estate tax. It's the same as if you won the lottery and got $50,000 of extra income, or
Right.
found a bag of money on the street, and naturally you're supposed to report that stuff. And that's where the taxing comes when because that is unearned income, and that's going to be taxed.
Wow.
And there's ways, if you have a good CPA, there's ways to defer, mitigate that, spread it out over a couple of years or something. But that's a little different. But the stock, gold, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That happened to me one time. I'll tell this story. It's a while back. I always thought it's good to own some precious metals and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a real doomsdayer.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think just for diversification process.
Sure.
And I had bought some gold coins, but it was for a reason. But anyway, I bought them from a broker. People that sell this stuff. It was like 10 gold coins or something.
Yeah.
And I had them for a couple of years. And the reason I bought them came around and I sold them. I think I sold them back to the same broker or a broker. Okay?
Yeah.
So I did it that year. I filed a tax return, and when I got a letter in the mail from the IRS, and they said I can't remember the numbers, but they said you owe like $9,000 in taxes. And I read the letter about it. I'm thinking, that's not right. I pay somebody to do the taxes, and I'm pretty sure we did it right. So I'm reading it, and here's what happened. I showed the sale of those gold coins, but didn't show what I paid for it. No basis. And so the IRS says if you don't show basis, we're making the assumption, we're going to impute upon you that all that is gain because you didn't tell us what you paid for it.
Ah, I see.
And so I thought, well, shoot, I know I bought this stuff. And you know what I did? I have this like a box. You ever get letters in the mail? I mean, you got an account with Charles Schwab, or you got these, you get these letters, and you don't open them, but you throw them in a box unopened. You don't quite throw them away just yet.
Yep.
I dug through a box of that, and lo and behold, I opened one up, and there was the sale. Okay?
Yeah.
And the theory is, if I forget what it was, but if I sold it for $10,000,
Yeah.
they were saying that's all income, so you owe tax on that.
Right.
And so, but if you bought it for $10,000, and if you sold it for $10,000 and you bought it for $8,000,
Yeah.
now they're only going to tax you on the $2,000 that you gained.
Right.
Well, lo and behold, it was some years ago when gold was not like it is now, but I actually sold it for a couple $100 worth of loss.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I gave it to my accountant, sent that in. I don't know, a month later I got a letter in the mail, the exact same letter said, and it had like 0.00.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example
Yeah.
of the gain and the basis and how that works.
Yeah.
But once I showed the basis, then it's treated differently because that's what you have into it. And now the gain is only what you get above what you have into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was a little bit
It's an interesting.
stressful when that letter came. It's
Yeah.
like, really?
Yeah, I seem to always get a letter after I file my taxes that, hey, you forgot this or that or the other. I don't know why that happens.
I mean, you forget it, they give you an opportunity to cure it, and you
Yeah.
did, but still, it can happen. I mean, this gain, so capital gain tax is not something you owe,
Yeah.
you have to realize the gain first before you owe it.
Yeah. Well, looks like we got one of our regulars that wants to talk to us.
We got a few minutes.
Got a couple of minutes. Miss Peggy, what you got this morning?
Yes, I talk to people, and you'd be surprised. A lot of people, I'm sure, listen to you, and you don't even know it. I had a couple of questions. He made a comment, I can't remember when it was, but he said that if something changed, like the law, it could be grandfathered in whatever was in place. And I was wondering, did that apply to the trust law, or did that apply to if Medicare changed the law? Because I had read somewhere that a lot of people have issues because they're afraid there'll be changes in Medicare and the trust won't handle it. Just thought I'd mention that.
All right. I think we got it. You
Yeah, I
got
got it.
Okay, thanks, Peggy.
First of all, I don't know who's listening because it's radio.
Yeah, we don't.
Although I have a lot of people come and say, "Hey, I listened to you on WDXE."
Yeah, yeah.
But so I know some. I know there's some out there. Second of all, actually, changes in any law. Our Constitution says that there can be no such thing. It's in Article 1, Section 8. I can't remember. You cannot have what's called an ex post facto law.
Yeah.
Ex post facto is Latin. It means to relate back. So what that means is you can't reach back in time with a change. When you make a change, it exists from that moment on.
Yeah.
Here's a good example. We talk about this 5-year rule all the time. That
Right.
rule used to be 3 years. Prior to 2006, it was 3 years. We passed the Deficit Reduction Act, and Tennessee adopted the Deficit Reduction Act in 2006.
Yep.
And that imposed a 5-year rule. Now, that means it's for that going forward from that point in time, it's 5 years. But anybody that had a trust before that, the rule was 3.
Yeah.
Okay, you can't reach back and change it. Because
Yeah.
if you did that, I mean, even in criminal law, I mean, if you do that, you can say, okay, we're changing this, and now all of a sudden you got tons of people that committed crimes that didn't know that, because it wasn't a crime back then.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're making it can be a crime from now on.
Yeah.
But same thing with trust law, or this is any law, trust law, criminal law, banking law, and you can't reach back in time with those things.
Oh, okay.
So, and when she uses the word grandfather, it's not a legal term, but it describes the situation well enough. It means if you're in it and that's what it is, that's what's going to stay for you.
Yes.
It's not going to change you necessarily.
Yeah.
But and she's right there. The trust can handle changes in the law for the most part. I mean, trust law does not change very often. Medicaid law does. Not often, but it does change, okay?
Yeah.
And it was affected by the One Big Beautiful Bill recently. I went over some of those changes on the radio shows, and it wasn't that big a change, but there were a few that affect us slightly. But
Sure.
But those things change, but again, they don't reach back in time. Now, if you do something after it changes, then you're subject to the change.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, if you read some statutes, which I mean, the average person doesn't, but if you look at some statutes, a lot of times there'll be a lot of them will say something like, "Here's this, but it's effective for everything after July 1st, 2002."
Sure.
Or something like that. You know what I mean? And that's how they put it in the statute, that when the actual changes. So that's in effect from this point forward. Before
Okay.
that, it's not in effect.
Okay.
Pretty straightforward. So, if there's changes in the law that you're just not SOL because your trust doesn't handle it,
Right.
the trust will handle, because the trust deals with the concept of the long-term care. The only thing that's going to change in long-term care is the cost, the provisions for eligibility, stuff like that. And again, if we ever, here's something that's interesting for Tennessee. If a change ever happens, let's just use that 5-year rule, because
Right.
I'm telling you, in the last administration, I was just shocked that they didn't change it to something like 7 or 10.
Yeah.
I was waiting for that shoe to drop the whole time. It never did. they talked about it a couple times, but it just never got up enough steam and it just fizzled out, and that was that. And so now I think it's not gonna be for a little while at least, but,
Yeah.
let's take that example. Let's just say, and the way it works is all states' Medicaid is governed by the Federal Medicaid Act. Each state does their own thing, but.
Yeah.
So, here's what happened. The Fed, just like it happened last time in 2006 when they changed it from 3 to 5, the Feds changed the main Medicaid Act.
Yeah.
And say, we would like the states to have a 7-year penalty look-back period, okay? Now, the states can opt in or not. I won't get into that, but I mean, back in 2006, 49 states opted into the 5-year rule, one did not. So they can opt in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they usually do because they dangle Medicaid money for you to
Sure.
have and stuff like that. So they say if Tennessee let's say they did that, and let's say Tennessee opted in, and then Tennessee now has to change their TennCare program to reflect the opt-in. And so let's say the legislature, both houses of the legislature, made a rule and said it's going to be 7 years now, and they both passed it, sent it to the governor's office, and Governor Lee signs it.
Right.
If that happened today, let's just be unrealistic and say that happened, and now all of a sudden Governor Lee signed it today, which was the last thing. In Tennessee, our laws do not go into effect but for 2 days a year, January 1st and July 1st.
Yeah, you pointed that out.
If that happened today, that would not be law until January 1st. So when something like that happens, we're going to see it coming, right?
Yes.
Now, I mean, if it happens on June 30th, maybe not, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
Usually we know it's coming. Now, if that happens, perfect example of what the caller was asking about, if that happened, let's just say that happened and we found out today, and I'm here on the radio station telling you, hey, they signed that law, but it's not going to be a Tennessee law until January 1st.
Right.
Well, and if you said, you know what, I've been wanting to do a trust, and now they're going to change the 5-year rule, you can come and do it. And you would still have the 5 years, because that's what's in effect now. That law will not go into effect till January 1st. When it does, the time has changed. And it will not look back, even if you did it the day before. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how law is. That's how it has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not law. It would be total anarchy if you could reach backward in time, because all you need to do, take a criminal statute, and all you need to do is, you got an opponent you want to get rid of, you just change the law to say that what he's been doing for the last 5 years is now a crime.
Yeah.
Pass the law and then go arrest him for a crime that he did 5 years ago. I mean, it's the reason the founders put it in the Constitution. It's a vehicle of abuse, and,
Yeah.
because that's what the kings would do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's what King George did anyway. He was
And remember, we have no king.
we have no kings, and it's.
I baited you there. I'm sorry.
No, but I'm just saying the fact that people can complain about no kings is prima facie proof
that we have no king. That's right.
If you had a king and you complained about him, you'd end up with a bullet in your head. I mean, that's what they do when you have that kind of authoritarian. Anyway, but that's a perfect example of ex post facto. And so don't worry about that. It's not going to happen. But if you wait until after they change it, then you're stuck with the change.
Right.
And another example of that is people create a trust that I do, the Asset Protection Trust. They put property into it. And they often ask, can I put property in later on? And the answer is absolutely. But when you put property in later on, it has its own 5-year time clock. Because remember, the 5 years starts when you divest yourself of it. So here's an example. You do a trust today.
Yes.
Put your house in, you put some money in. And then 2 years later from now, you win the lottery.
Yeah.
And you get $100,000 and you say, I'm going to put that in my trust.
Yeah.
So you put it in the trust. You can do that. But that $100,000 is going to have its own 5-year time clock, because that clock starts when you divest yourself of it or give it up into the trust, and that's going to happen 2 years from now.
Right.
So your house is tracking along in the 5 years. The winnings is coming behind it 2 years behind. So you can do that. Now, my point is this: if
You're very optimistic about me winning the lottery.
there you go. The point is this: if you put property into a trust now, you got the 5 years.
Yeah.
But if you put additional property into the trust, and it's after they change it to 7,
Yeah.
that's going to enjoy the new time period.
Yeah.
Because it's not ex post facto, but the divestment. What it is a divestment penalty, and the divestment happened after the law was changed. It's not going to affect the stuff we put in now. It's still on a 5-year clock.
Right.
But it will. The new thing you put in there, if the moment you divest yourself of it is after the law has been changed, you're going to get the changed law.
Yeah.
And I know that's the way it works, because when we changed it from 3 years to 5 years, we had this 2-year period that dealt with that.
Yeah.
And that things that were done, and that's exactly how they were treated.
Interesting.
So we know how we know they'll probably even use the same language when they change it as they did before.
Had some experience with this, yeah.
Well, I wasn't doing estate planning back then, but I've gone back and looked at it.
Yeah.
Like I said, if they would change it to 7 years, I'll bet you the language in the statute would be almost identical to what they did in 2006.
Yeah.
So,
But on the foreseeable future right now, you don't see it happening right at the moment.
I don't, you know, the last administration was a spending administration, so they're looking for money anywhere they can get it, and that's a good place to go to get more money.
Yeah.
This administration's finding it in many other places. I mean, I don't think so, I don't know.
Yeah.
But people have been, even when they did it in the last administration, it never got up enough steam, which tells me a lot of folks in government utilize the stuff we're talking about. And
Right.
Not too interested in shooting themselves in the foot.
Very good.
But, I mean, to gain money, if they need money in the future, I mean, that's a place they may go.
Yeah. We got about 4 minutes or so. And I know you want to review the fact that we've got this seminar coming up
Yes,
again.
we do.
And I wanted to ask you too, if anything going on at the theater before we always talk about that.
There is
a
just
little bit.
some Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
But there's we got I think it's next weekend, a karaoke. It's adult karaoke. It's karaoke with, you know, get dressed up. So it'll be fun. But we've got the Nutcracker coming up, and I think that's in late November.
Oh, yeah.
Just started rehearsals. And we got something in the first of the year, a Charlie Brown thing. It's a hard day, or it's a
I
can't
love
think
Charlie
of-
Brown.
Yeah, it's one of the Charlie Brown things, but a kid's version. But that's in January, I think, so it'll be
Yeah.
plenty of time to talk about that. They haven't even cast that yet, so but it's coming up. And best thing to do is go to startheater.org, and then you look at what's scheduled,
Yeah.
stuff like that. So.
Yeah.
But the seminar coming up. Whered that hour go? Man, I'm looking around here.
It's unbelievable,
I
isn't
can't
it?
find it anywhere.
Unbelievable how fast it
There's
goes.
some other hours I wish we'd go this fast.
Yeah.
But seminar, November the 22nd, at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. We call it Wills Trust in the Nursing Home. And it's going to be at the Williamson County Public Library, 1314 Columbia Avenue in Franklin. And it's not too early to sign up for that.
Not at all.
Now, you know, it might be a nice break around the holidays. It's a good time to bring the kids along and have a discussion about this kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's
It
true.
really is. It's a good
Especially
time to do
your adult kids, yeah. Oh, yeah,
I mean,
no doubt.
don't be afraid to talk about this. A lot of people don't like talking about their mortality. I get it.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, you just, like anything else in life, you just have to embrace it and deal with it. I mean,
The better planning, the better you'll be.
and the better they'll be.
And the better they'll be. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. Stan Pierchoski, everybody, at Pierchoski Estate Law in Pulaski, Tennessee, on the historic Pulaski Square,
That's right.
next to the Star Theater. And of course, you guys are involved with the Star Theater, you and your wife, and kind of keep us up informed on that. That phone number of your office is 363-7222.
It is.
And
My website is estateplanstand.com.
estateplanstand.com. That's correct. That is true. All right. Yeah, we've got about 30 more seconds, and just want to remind everybody that you're here every Friday.
I am here every Friday from 8 to 9.
8 to 9, and you can check us out there. And of course, we encourage you to go by and set up an appointment maybe and you take phone call appointments too.
Sure, I do. I set up phone calls. Typically, we call, the girls will ask what the question is, and they'll schedule a time for me to call that person back.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And my time's dedicated to that question.
Yeah, always enjoyable, always informative. I've learned a lot with you and I talking over the few years we've been doing this, and it's been years already.
It's been 2 years.
2 years,
More.
can you believe it?
And that's what makes you feel old.
All right, more to come next Friday. We'll see you, good Lord willing, then.
Always a pleasure.
All right, see you, man.
This is WDXE.
Yeah, good timing. We didn't run long. I can't see the clock, so I always let you navigate that last minute.